Welcome to a football show. NFL week number 1 is here, and the Titans have a football game this weekend. My name is Braden Gall. He is Zach Lyons of stackingtheinbox.com. Football and other F words. Of course, we've got week 2 in the SEC. We got the Saints in town. We got Spitgate going on all over the town of Nashville, Tennessee. Football is back, my man. We, of course, are brought to you by Sinkers Beverages and the Kingston Group. Got some really cool events from Bluegrass, Sinker's sister store up in Hendersonville. We're going to tell you about that as well going on throughout the course of the show. If you want to get into the comment section, please do. Zach, I am jacked up here, man, on Mountain Dew. I'm ready to go.
People probably think I'm a little sweaty right now, but it's not because of someone spitting in my face. It's just because, I am just I'm all in. Football's here. It's just around the corner. Doesn't seem real quite yet, but at 7 o'clock Central Standard Time, when that first ball gets kicked off for the NFL tonight's debut, Lions versus Chiefs, a great matchup, which I've always been super ecstatic about this matchup. I know that it got kind of poo-pooed on when it first got announced, but I thought it was a great opening matchup, and it's made even better by Travis Kelce. His intrigue surrounding if he's going to be available or not is up in the air. Chris Jones is going to be in the press box, or I think I'd be in a suite watching the game and not playing. Jared Goff and the Lions, can they keep the momentum going? It's just so much. I'm just excited, I'm not a fan of either team, but go Lions.
Here we go,
nation, baby.
And look, I agree. The people actually care about the Lions. They come into a season with people paying attention and actual pressure for the first time. And I don't know when in the history of my adult life that's been a thing for the Detroit Lions. But the NFC is completely wide open. The AFC is completely packed. The Titans are a big part of that, of course. So to your point, every single time an AFC team plays, if you're a Titans fan, you're just rooting against. You need as many losses to the NFC as possible by everybody in the AFC. It's not too early to look at the playoff picture, Zach. Not too early.
Never too early.
Never too early. Okay, special thanks to all you guys joining. Zach and Elliot are in the comments, so get into the comments if you have questions. We have some philosophical questions about week 1 that Zach's going to mansplain. We've got Spitgate that I guess you and Mike did as good a job as any people could possibly do. You guys spent 30 minutes on this, but I'm not even going to use the guy's name. I'm not even going to call him by name.
It's Charlie Burst. Don't be a coward.
I just don't. Well,
listen, do you think anybody that's listening or watching this doesn't already know about it?
It's about, but it's not about being a coward. It's about I don't want to give anybody oxygen because I don't care about the actual tweet itself. And to me, it's so it hurts my brain to even think about the point this person was trying to make. So I don't even want to address that. I have some other questions, sort of my perspective and spin off of that. Of all the drama. If you want a really full-throated, in-depth conversation about Pander versus Spitgate by the Tennessee Titans and the Tennessee Volunteers, please go check out Football and Other F Words After Dark. Of course, you and Mike spent almost 30 minutes on it, and it was a great conversation. I thoroughly enjoyed it, so go check it out. I was at the game, of course, with some family on Sunday last week, or Saturday. I guess it was Saturday, so I can kind of speak from my perspective of what I saw. And we can kind of get into that a little bit later on. But how about we talk football instead, of course, brought to you by Sinkers Beverages and the Kingston Group. Sinkers Beverages is Nashville's #1 liquor store, 2022, the defending champ. They are the Kansas City Chiefs of liquor stores in Nashville, Tennessee. So make sure you go sign up for the in crowd. I got a text message the other day from one of our listeners who said, look, I just swung by Sinkers. Look at all this great whiskey they had, huge allocation. They send you an email and tell you, hey, we're about to put all this good stuff out. Come swing by this afternoon. They'll hold it for you, but you only get that if you sign up for the in-crowd. So make sure you go to Sinkers, sign up for the in-crowd. You can also Uber Eats, search Sinkers Beverages, and they will send the booze directly to your house.
They'll drive so you can drink.
And, of course, you and Stoney made your official predictions up at Bluegrass Beverages for the Titans last weekend. Great episode. Go check that out on the YouTube page, as well as all over the Football and Other F Words podcast feed. It was a fantastic time. But they're doing it again, sort of a different spin. That one's more beer and food. This one's going to be like a bourbon and tequila festival. Saturday, and it's free. It's $0, guys. Saturday, September 30th at Bluegrass Beverages, celebrating again the 50th anniversary of that store serving people in Hendersonville. Pretty much exact same concept, except for it's going to be free bourbon and free tequila. Hello. I'm not sure what else we need to say. And of course, there's a chance that we could be doing some live programming up there as well. So just stay tuned. We got barrel picks, limited edition stuff, all kinds of allocated products that are going to be up there. Bluegrass and sinkers, great stuff. Okay, let's get to the Titans Saints game because we are going to build. That's right. We're going to build a win for the Titans against the Saints this weekend. Brought to you by the Kingston Group, buildkg.com. Can I start with one specific question for you, Zach, to answer? As part of our Building the Win, brought to you by the Kingston Group. Did I mention that it's brought to you by the Kingston Group?
3 times.
Am I out of line in saying that I think the Titans are better potentially along both lines of scrimmage? Is that crazy?
Well, so are you saying, to elaborate, offensive line versus offensive line and defensive line versus defensive line? Or are you saying the Titans offensive line versus the Saints defensive line and the Saints offensive line? Like, what are you exactly comparing?
Good question. I actually think if you did O-line versus O-line, you could lean Titans. And if you go D-line versus D-line, you definitely would lean Titans. So it could be both. But I was thinking more the actual matchup within the game. When the Titans have the football, could they actually have the upper hand? Let's say even just inside interior offensive line, maybe not at tackle, but maybe the interior. Do the Titans have potentially the upper hand on their offensive line versus Saints D-line? And I think it's pretty clear that the Titans have a better defense, like the defensive line of the Titans versus the Saints offensive line.
The defensive line is probably in most games going to be the best unit on either side of the ball, on either team. Like that's probably going to be 9 times out of 10 the best unit. So, wow, that I would call you crazy if it's just on paper, the offensive line players versus the defensive line papers. But I don't think that's necessarily what you're saying. And maybe I'm overstepping and putting words in your mouth, but I would assume that you're including that the way that the Titans offense will be structured, the offensive line is going to win their matchup versus the Saints defensive line, but not necessarily because of the 5 players that are on that line.
I think that's correct. It's a little bit more nuanced than just like we better than you.
Yeah.
And again, talent wise, I'm not sure how many defensive lines. Well, I need to rephrase that. Talent wise, I'm not sure how many times on paper you're going to see a Titans O line and say they're better than the other team's defensive line. Like talent wise.
It's the exact opposite of the defensive line for the Titans. Like,
yeah, exactly.
So to me, I don't think you're crazy if you're using the context and nuance that we like to use on this show. No empty calories. So I don't think you're crazy. Now, if you were coming here to tell me that, hey, I think that the tackles are going to be fine, Cam Jordan's going to only have 1 sack and stuff like that, then I'd be like, I would call you crazy. Because, I mean, this could end up being, and we're going to talk about week 1s later, but this could end up being very much like a Chandler Jones performance, except for take out Taylor Lewan and Chandler Jones and swap it for Cam Jordan for Chris Hubbard. But I think that because you have a different offensive coordinator and a different offensive philosophy stylistically, because it looked like Derrick Henry when he was asked about how much of a difference will we see between the offense this year in week 1 versus the offense last year. He was asked that today, and I probably just butchered the question by PK, but PK asked it, and he gave this smirk and a smile, and it was kind of like he's being cheeky about it because everybody has talked about all offseason that are the players that this is going to be a better offense, and they are excited to play in it. So I feel like that that style of play is going to mask a lot of the offensive line, and that's what it has to do. You cannot go into a game where you are relying on your offensive line to hold up for 3 seconds or more on average every drop back.
Well, and I think this is basically, you're exactly right with what I was kind of getting at, which is, do I think they can scheme around one glaring defensive issue. Titans offense. Like, can we take Cam Jordan out of the game with a specific game plan, be it play action, being it pulling Skoronski from one side to kick out so that the interior offensive line play is free to run and Derrick Henry has space. Like the key is, I think, the game plan. There's very few teams where I look at the interior of their defensive line or even the entire front line with the front seven baked into it and say, I think the Titans can run the ball on them. And I think the Titans can do it if they have a smart game plan from the coordinator and from the scheme, and they're willing to force the safeties to back off with some early threats, maybe on first down, throwing the ball. I don't know, perhaps. Like, I think that they can find space for Derrick Henry, especially in the interior of the offensive line. And if you can make those quick hitters, you can take Cam Jordan flowing down the line or rushing the passer kind of out of the play. And if that happens, then I think they can win that matchup. I don't know how many receivers, if I know Traylon Burks is out there, but like how many receivers are going to win a lot of one-on-one battles in the secondary? How many guys are going to be streaking wide open? I don't know about that. That's where
it should be all of them. I mean, DeAndre Hopkins will have Marshawn Lattimore on him, but the last two times that they have played, and I see Saints fans throwing this like a couple of clips up of I think the last time they played, and like Marshawn Lattimore looks like he's manhandling DeAndre Hopkins. DeAndre Hopkins has gone for over 100 yards every time that Marshawn Lattimore has been on him. So my guess is first play of the game. I know you could bet what it may be.
6-yard
play
out.
Action, baby. It is a play action pass, and I definitely think that's going to be a pass. But in my mind, I feel like the way this is probably one of the easier defenses they will face, not including like your bottom tier teams, because technically, I think everybody's kind of like is drunk on the Falcons Atlanta juice over there, and they're kind of forgetting that the Saints are a pretty damn good team with a better quarterback now. But
I mean, they can win the division.
I think it's one of the easier divisional contenders that the Titans will face, that the offense can take down that defense fairly easily. Because I mean, it's one guy on every level, but it's a inside linebacker with Demario Davis, it's Cam Jordan, and it's Marshawn Lattimore. Well, DeAndre Hopkins can manhandle Marshawn Lattimore. Scheming around an inside linebacker is fairly easy. And then it's just focusing on Cam Jordan, which you can help Chris Hubbard with some heavy jumbo sets. Maybe put Dylan Radins out there to help them.
12 personnel.
Put a tight end out there. I mean, to me, this is a perfect first game matchup. I like this matchup way better than I like the Titans versus Giants matchup last year, because I think Brian Daboll is a way better coach than Dennis Allen. We talked about it on the podcast, but Trevor Penning is just like a few personal fouls guaranteed this game. Jeffrey Simmons and Tara Tart will make his life a living hell. And Dennis Allen does not know how to technically keep a team in check. And this isn't a entirely different offense that Derek Carr is stepping into. It's one that has been put on tape a few times. I mean, not only do you have Andy Dalton-esque games, which is not technically the same. I mean, obviously, Derek Carr is a way better quarterback than Andy Dalton, but they're the same prototypical step back passing quarterback with limited mobility. But it's also something that Derek Carr's put on tape a couple of years ago. It's the same kind of offense that he's almost been in, quite frankly, his whole career. Yeah. So all the tape's going to look good. And you got Chris Olave, but he's no Devontae Adams, and you don't know what Michael Thomas is. Like, if you were building a win, like what we are, and building a ideal first opponent outside of the bottom feeders, this is an ideal first opponent on the road, in my opinion.
Alvin Kamara suspended for the game. Like, another benefit for the team. I want to get to the defensive matchups in a second, but I think going back to, first of all, I'm going to go play action, 7-yard out, quick out with maybe a shotgun set with a play action read to Derrick Henry and a lightning quick out route to DeAndre Hopkins, first down, gain of 6.5, 2nd and 3. That's my prediction for the first play. Only because I saw it on the first play of every practice session. so that's what I'm going to go with as a
Watch
guess.
out. They're going to pull this show because you're giving away the competitive advantage of
sorry.
of that.
And well, they didn't do much play action in practice, so we'll see. I think the other matchups, though, to me, let's say hypothetically, the receiving core doesn't find the space. Let's say hypothetically Lattimore has a good game that Hopkins is Hopkins, but he's 4 or 5 catches, 50, 60 yards. Let's just say it's like an okay debut, but he's not a game changer because they focus on him and they want to take him away. Burks maybe isn't 100%. I'm going to go kind of not worst case scenario, but like this is the thing that we've been talking about all camp, and it's the thing that I want to see the most from the offense is the creativity with the positionless pieces, which is Tajay Spears, which is Chigakonkwo, and which is technically Treylon Burks to some degree, but mostly it's Spears and Chig. And I want to see what are you doing with those guys that is different than Todd Downing? What are you doing with those guys that makes me excited to see your ability to come into a game with a plan, with a scheme, maximizing your weapons and doing it in an efficient way week in and week out? And I just think that's the job of the coordinator. That's the thing that Todd Downing couldn't do. He was too predictable and too basic and the same shit over and over and over again. Like one of my favorite phrases that is not used enough in sports talk because of the FCC is fuck around and find out.
Yeah.
Training camp is the fuck around period. We are now into the find out period. And Tim Kelly's been fucking around all summer long. And now I need to find out. What does it actually look like when the bullets are flying? And I want to see how they use the new, exciting, interesting, and dynamic and versatile pieces. And that's what I want to see from him. And when? Is it 3rd and 8? Is it 3rd and 2? Is it running you know what I mean? Like I want to see the decision-making process from Tim Kelly on full display. And again, on the road, underdog by a couple of points, a team that's not terrible, not great, but not terrible. I agree with you. It is a good first week test where you're going to learn a lot because you're not playing a garbage cupcake team, but you're also not playing a team that's just clearly better than you. So I think you're going to learn a lot this week because I think it's a good matchup.
Yeah, I mean, like the Titans have the coaching advantage. They have the defensive line advantage. They have, in my opinion, the pass catching advantage. I didn't want to say wide receiver, but in my mind, we don't know what Michael Thomas is. He's played very little over the last 2 years. And for him to come out and get 100 yards, I'd be very surprised. A lot of people are hyping up Juwan Johnson. I don't get it. He's just like a Moali Cox to me. He's just a guy, and I get that he's athletic, but
I think Chris Olave is the best offensive weapon.
It's
in
maybe
the passing
the
game
only
on
offensive weapon that they have, right? Like, I would say that you're probably right on what you just said. Chris Olave is probably the best pass catching weapon on either team.
Yep.
But it's just Chris Olave, right? There's no Alvin Kamara in the backfield. There's no Kendra Miller is going to be back there either. We're talking is Jamal Williams, who is great inside the 20.
Right.
But like once he's outside of that, you're talking about a guy that's probably getting like 2 or 3 yards per carry. And against this Titans run defense, you're going to need more than that. They don't have enough firepower right now due to suspensions and injuries and to really compete with the Titans offense, in my opinion. And I think, I said like 28-17, I think was my prediction, Titans. And I think that it's just a perfect matchup for them. And you talk about Pretty Boy Kelly and what he needs to show. For me, I don't need to see all the tricks, right? I need to see a good opening script. The red zone efficiency is there, and the trips to the red zone efficiency or the trips to the red zone are there, but they all need to be there in a quick style pace. So like you can measure pace of play. And we talked about it on this before, and I've talked about it back in the box. Time between snaps.
Yeah.
And you want to see that go down considerably from where the Titans have been these last 2 years under Todd Downing. So to me, that's what I'm looking for. I want to see the play action usage to go up, and that is a concern Charles London's the passing game coordinator. Jason Otten is the run game coordinator and running backs coach. Those guys come from heavily influenced play action backgrounds. Tim Kelly doesn't, and Todd Downing didn't. And
Yeah.
so I'm very interested to see that what those two guys bring to the offense along with Tim Kelly. It's a lot of chefs in that kitchen. But I also want to see if you remember Charles, and I broke it down secondinbucks.com. Charles London was at the NFL quarterback symposium or something like that. And I can't remember what the official event was, but he was talking about his main tenets of a passing game, and his like 10 or 11 things. I want to see how many of those things are
Yeah.
incorporated into this offense. How much influence do these two guys have? And Tim Kelly, who does not come from a traditional play action usage background.
Well, and I think it's funny you mentioned Jamal Williams being stacked up in the box. I do expect the rushing defense for Tennessee to be very, very good. Jamal Williams again is not sort of that flashy in space jitterbug kind of guy. He's a between the tackles plotter. He had his best season as a pro last year. But this sort of like brings up Taysom Hill in a weird way to me. It's like, are they going to be smart with how they use him? Derek Carr is certainly a major upgrade on anything that the Saints have had since Drew Brees retired. So I think I'm curious how the rest of the offense feels now that they have sort of a professional operating the system, and how that does that open up the ability to do things that we just couldn't see them do last year. I'm assuming it does. But Taysom Hill is the guy that, like, if you're looking at the Titans going like, all right, how are they going to use Chig? It's going to be creative and positionless. And how are they going to use Taysom Hill? Like, that guy kind of, again, fully healthy, can be very, very dangerous to game plan for. So I don't know if that's Elijah Molden. I don't know if that's
I don't know, man. Taysom Hill's a big boy. I don't know if
Elijah Molden can tackle, dude. He
can tackle, but you got to be able. You don't want the thing with Taysom Hill is that whenever he's catching the ball, it's usually for a gain of a lot and a touchdown. Like, if you're trying to prevent those first downs, touchdowns in the long games, I don't know if Elijah Molden is that guy. Maybe Vildor is
I guess I was thinking creative ways to get the ball to somebody in space quickly, which, to your point, is not necessarily how they've used him in the past. But if they have got Chris Olave outside, who's being marked, let's call it double covered, Fulton on one side and Murphy Bunting on the other, and then a safety help over the top, all of a sudden and Jamal Williams is stopped because the rushing attack doesn't work in between the tackles. Like, who's their weapon? That would be Kamara, right? Like, Kamara would be the guy that you would get the ball to quickly in space. And that's where you need either Al-Shaair or Molden, in my opinion, to be able to play fast and make good tackles in space. And I'm curious if that's what they do with Taysom Hill at all. Like, do they try to use him in a different way? And again, I'm just, we're kind of just talking through what could happen, things that I'm keeping an eye on. The secondary, I have pretty good faith in doing a good job. I don't love the idea of them just staying on their own side of the field, but that's the way they play it. So,
but I think it's fine, because I think this offensive line for the Saints, I wouldn't be surprised if this is a 5-sack game right out of the gate for the Tennessee Titans defense, which would probably be the number one sacking performance of the week, or be right up there. But I feel like Carr has a penchant for taking sacks. I mean, I know he does. And I think this offensive line is going to be way overwhelmed with everything that is going to be thrown at them. Even if Harold Landry misses whatever he's got, like diarrhea or whatever his abdomen pains are, even if he misses the game, I still feel fine about this pass rushing team, because I feel fine about Arden Key. I feel fine by Travis Gibson. I feel fine by Rashad Weaver. Maybe that lets Caleb Murphy be active, because right now would not expect him to be active a whole lot of games. But I think, and that's what we're in the middle of talking about right now, Stoney, I think that Trevor Penning's going to get that ass kicked. It's to me, it's the matchup to exploit for this Titans defense. And I think because he's not very good, he is a hothead. And I talked about it earlier in the episode, but Tart Jeffrey Simmons, man, there's a lot of chirping in Trevor Penning's ear. And there's going to be a very it's like the DK Christian Fulton game, but it's the offensive and
I
defensive.
I watched so my wife and I are watching I watched Winning Time last year, and I think it's one of the best TV shows on TV right now. It's about the Lakers. It's written by Jeff Pearlman, by the way, former Tennessee writer for the Tennessean. It's on HBO. It's about the maybe origin, excuse me, the origination of like Showtime Lakers and how the NBA became real. I was watching that with my wife. She goes to bed. I turn it off because she doesn't want me to watch anything. I ended up watching the end of White Men Can't Jump, and the scene where Woody Harrelson just never shuts up ever. It's going into the tournament to win the $5,000, and he just will not. He just keeps talking. And Wesley Snipes is like, dude, you need to chill. You need to chill out. You need to stop. And he's just like, no, I'm in the zone. I'm in the zone. I got to keep going. Like I want to see Woody Harrelson. White Men Can't Jump. Trash talk levels of efficiency from Jeffrey Simmons.
Yeah.
Just
it will be there.
Non-stop, just bang, 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 bang. Because eventually you get that guy to lose his cool, and then you beat him.
Yeah,
and not that you need him to be out of sorts to beat him anyway. But like,
no, and it's Eric McCoy is probably their best offensive lineman. I mean, Ryan Ramczyk, he's kind of battled with injuries, and he's good, but he's not great. I just feel like it's just an overpowering matchup that I feel like we're gonna walk away from week one. This is why week one is a liar, thinking that the secondary is great and the offense is fixed. And I don't think that's technically going to be the case either way based off of this week one performance, because they should look good because the matchup is favoring them. Let's look at a matchup that maybe it doesn't favor those two things and doesn't heavily favor the defensive line and see what happens.
Yeah, I'll be curious. I don't know if there's any other individual matchups. Again, this building a win for the Tennessee Titans is brought to you by the Kingston Group, Nashville's locally owned custom home and remodeling firm. Make sure you contact them before you make any big decisions about your house. They will have the plans. They will have the plans laid out for you for whatever you want. Hopefully, like pretty boy Tim Kelly has for the offense. What's the most concerning? I mean, we could talk about Nick Folk in the kicking game. We can talk about the return game. We can talk about a lot of different things on the roster that we've sort of had concerns about. But is there a matchup that scares you the most in terms of this is where I think if I'm the Saints and I'm doing this show about the Saints, this is the matchup I want to see them exploit?
What's the only matchup you can't exploit, and that's Chris Olave. Like wherever Chris Olave's, you got to find ways to create mismatches if the Tennessee Titans are not going to follow Chris Olave around with Christian Fulton. If it's Roger McCreary and Chris Olave, it's one step and some dust. Like Roger McCreary cannot match up on Chris Olave. I mean, there's no doubt in my mind. Sean Murphy Bunting maybe can be that guy that can be on him, but again, that's the only matchup you gotta be scared of, right? I mean, there's nobody else on their defense that I'm technically scared of those three. And I don't think that Derrick Henry technically has to go off this game. He's notorious for being pretty inefficient on week one, but this is in a dome. This is in a favorable matchup for him. But I don't think you have to have it's like, I'm not scared of if the run defense is kind of like, it's not that good anyway for the Saints, but I'm not too scared of that. So the only thing I'm scared of is Chris Olave. And the Titans have to game plan for him. And I'm a little afraid that if the Saints are smart and they get him moving around and the Titans are having to communicate a lot among a lot of new pieces to try to make sure that he is covered, that could create some miscommunication in the secondary.
I do think man-to-man Fulton's the only one that can do it consistently. I don't know about the other guys. Joshua has a really great question, so I want to ask that in just a second. But I drew a total blank on what I was going to follow up on what you're going to say, and then Joshua's question distracted me, which is what is the takeaway if either of those things don't come true? You said, week one's a liar. We'll get to that because I think that's a good message for every fan.
That's just what I was going to turn right into, was just like week one's a liar. I tried not to have takeaways after week one.
Well, and that so you're saying so your projection is we could come out of week one saying, look, the secondary is really, really good and the offense could be fixed.
And we shouldn't. And that's what I'm saying, is that we shouldn't. Here you go. Let's just put it up here.
Well, but I think Josh is asking a different question.
But
What
what's
if that doesn't happen? What if the secondary looks terrible and the offense doesn't look like they've solved the problems? It is
and the NFL's week 1 is a liar. I mean,
all right.
I'm just that's the same thing. It doesn't matter if they're good
Okay.
or bad. You shouldn't have any sweeping takeaways from week 1. Good or bad, no sweeping takeaways because guess what? The Cardinals came in here to Nashville and beat the ass of the Tennessee Titans that eventually went to the number 1 seed. And do you think anybody after week 1 was saying the number 1 seed Tennessee Titans or no? Because I
Right.
was on a podcast
Right.
that was basically like doom and gloom. And then that's a couple weeks later, you take that loss with the Jets loss, and everybody's panicking. And I'm like, guys, do not panic. Last year, everybody thought the Tennessee Titans were good. Oh, well, the week 1, it's not that big of a deal. Then not a lot of takeaway, not a big deal. Week 2, week 3, they're getting some wins and blah, blah, blah. And I kept telling people, guys, this team's not looking good. You're setting yourselves up for disappointment. You cannot worry about week 1. Week 1's a lot. Like if Josh Dobbs and the Cardinals somehow win their game week 1, are you suddenly going to change your opinion and mind about that team? No.
Everybody in the NFL can beat everybody else. The best can lose to the worst, and the worst can beat the best. And that's that is the purpose of the game.
Week 1 is a notorious liar. If the Chiefs tonight come out flat, but the Lions look good, everybody's going to be asking, what's wrong with the Chiefs? Oh, the Chiefs, how important is Travis Kelce and, blah, 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 blah. When we all know what's going to happen is that the Chiefs turn around and they end up somehow like the number 1 seed and probably in the Super Bowl. Like that's just the week 1 is a liar. There's going to be things to observe that you take note of. I'm not saying you don't have any takeaways or, any generalizations or anything like that, but it's something that you have to track. You can't just say, well, this offensive line sucks and it's always going to suck because it can get better. The secondary just, got their asses kicked in. And so they're going to get their asses kicked in every game. No, it's something you got to take note of after week 1.
So Zach says it doesn't mean that what happened week 1 isn't true. It just means you can't call it true for the entire season based off of 1 week. Have to see it happen multiple weeks, not matter the outcome. Which leads me to a follow-up to all of that, which is what do you think you can learn? And I would say you can't learn anything. I agree with your point that all of week 1 is a liar when it comes to wins and losses, big picture strengths and weaknesses, right? Like, I don't think you're not going to throw away an entire camp's worth of analysis of the defensive line because let's say Jamal Williams has a pretty good game, let's say, hypothetically.
Or heck, what if they don't get a sack, right? Are you suddenly just going to poo-poo on the Tennessee Titans defensive line?
What I think you can do is you can take individual matchups and sort of circle them and say, that was really critical in a positive way, or that was really critical in a negative way. So, like, let me give you an example. For example, if Arden Key is matched up one-on-one on the outside and he gets handled on every pass rush attempt by a tackle that we think is, not one of the best, but not one of the worst, just sort of a guy, right? If he does not create any pressure and is largely handled in single situations one-on-one for most of the game, I think we can put a circle around that and say, all right, we need to see Arden Key. We need to see Arden Key develop in single situations to create some pass rush, or in a positive way. Like, you could do it the other way and say, look, Chig, when he is in man-to-man coverage with a linebacker, dude cannot be covered. I think that's when you can take the little things, the games within the game, and say, look, every time Chig was put man-to-man coverage on a linebacker, he caught 4 passes for 48 yards.
I would look at it this way too. I think a good example is, let's say that they lose, and let's say they lose, but in your scenario earlier, where like DeAndre Hopkins gets like 6 catches for 60 yards or something like that. You said something sort of like that.
Sure.
But let's say that comes off 10 targets. That's good. That is in a loss, that is a good takeaway that you can have, because that is something that we have already heard from in camp, right? That is supported by camp information that they are feeding DeAndre Hopkins no matter what. So that is a takeaway you can have, because that's something that we've known that was going to happen, and then they put it into action. And you get what I'm saying? Like,
Yep.
you know,
Yeah.
it's
Yep.
it's kind of picking and choosing, but it's really not, because you're just being more methodical about what you're looking at and
It.
be more purposeful with your
Yes.
takeaway. Because
Yes. It's
that's the problem with radio, and we all get it. It's ratings and blah blah blah. But the purpose of it is to generate these clickbaity headlines without
big.
real purpose and
Yes.
generalizations. So you got people tuning in and arguing with each other. We
Right.
just
It's
we just got to be better as a society, not to fall apart.
week one is a liar, and let's be better as a human race, as a
Yes.
human species. No, I agree. Sports talk radio, and I do this for a living in other places. Like, you have to be grandiose. Like, it has to be the big sweeping takeaway that is this team is ruined, it's done for the year, or this team is going to win the Super Bowl. Whatever. Like, or like, they're never going to be able, this quarterback is, Derek Carr was a total failure of a contract for the Saints. Like, that's going to be the, like, if he struggles. And that, I don't think you can do that. I think you can say, I just think you have to be, to your point, it has to be a specific matchup or skills that you are looking at and saying, all right, this player was put into this situation 7 or 8 times, and he either did very well in that situation or he did very poorly in that situation. And you got to then file that away and say, all right, he may not be good at that, or he may be very good at that. And again, we can come up with there's a million different situations in a game of football that allows you to do that. And with new free agents, like if every time they do play action, Daniel Brunskill is being pushed into the backfield, like, and the right side of the line is being pushed back into the backfield, like, we can start to learn, like, all right, maybe like the power bull rush is not what he's going to be good at against X, Y, or Z situation. So I think that's sort of you have to be really deep in the minutia and the specifics to start taking stuff away. And even then,
And even then, it could just be a bad game, right? Like, it could just
collecting
be
data. You're just collecting
it's
data.
all, hey, you know, I love that data.
You do. You love big data. It's all about collecting data, which happens in college too, even more so in college, because we know less about these players. We know a lot more about the players in the NFL. But with the Titans, lots of young players, lots of free agents, lots of rookies. It just learns stuff. You're watching the game to learn stuff. And again, like we talked about with the Chiefs, losing to an NFC team, a lot worse things you could do than lose to an NFC team. AVing asked earlier, like, why is everybody picking the Saints? Like, number one, they're at home. So I think that's worth about 3 points in your point spread, give or take. I think it goes to Vegas and the national perception that the Titans are in rebuild mode. The Athletics preview this week with Vic Topher was, I think Derrick Henry's going to play for the Cowboys. He mentioned it twice that he's taking the under on the Titans win total, and that Derrick Henry could be traded by the deadline.
So, I mean, I don't dispute that Derrick Henry could get traded at the deadline. I just, I saw Buck put it out that the betting the over under for the win total is like the hardest bet to make for the Tennessee Titans. I'm like, no, it's easy. You bet the over. I mean, they've gotten the over every year except for one.
Is it 7.5 still?
Yeah, 7.5, and they've beaten 8.5, 7.5, and 9.5. They've beaten them every year. Last year was the first time they came under, so the trend will correct itself.
Keaton says, "Do you think that Levis will play on Sunday?" I would
active maybe, but like he ain't gonna play.
The only way either one of them should. How about this? The only way either one of them should play in a game in which Ryan Tannehill is fully healthy is
a blowout.
It's really just a blowout. I don't even want to say like the one trick play for Malik Willis. I don't even want to say that. So I would say,
put that out in the ether. I don't want that to happen. That's just a fumble waiting to happen.
I know. A total blowout is the only way either one should get reps. Now, if Levis is active and the number 2 quarterback, I wouldn't mind seeing him take some snaps in real time. Even if the game is, I don't care. I think it would be. There is some value to be had there, even in a bad.
Not week one. No value in week one.
What about a 3 touchdown game in the fourth quarter? Is that okay?
Oh yeah, that'd be
a blowout. Okay, all right. That counts as a blowout. Okay, so that let me make my official then predictions here, because I have not officially made my Titans predictions. So I don't know if you've got any extras you'd like to offer me? Like extra
Let's
individual things. I was just going to stick with the team.
go
And
ahead.
what do I think is going to happen? I think
We
the
got a lot to
offense.
get to. We'll do this on a Monday show. The individuals.
Yeah, maybe I need to go faster then. That's true. And do appreciate all you guys for hanging out with us. I have them going over 7.5. I have them going 8-9, maybe 9-8, which really this hasn't changed since the beginning of camp.
Oh.
I think they are tied for the division championship with the Jacksonville Jaguars, and I think they lose the division based on week 18, just like last year. I think that's what's going to happen.
We'll see. You're big Jaguars fan.
You lifelong diehard Jags fan.
Yeah.
Lifelong diehard. I think 9-8 wins the division, and I could see them literally. I could see them tied at 9-8, which of course it could be a 1-1 head-to-head, and then it's your division record, and then it's like your conference record, and maybe Jacksonville wins one extra game. I don't know. The Titans, in theory, should have an easier schedule in all of those. The Titans should. So for some reason, I just don't think Titans take a huge step forward or a huge step back, but I don't think Jacksonville takes a big step forward, a big step back. I think it is going to be like this the entire season, every single week, just neck and
it
neck
may
all the
be
way to
for
the
a
end.
little bit because I mean the Jaguars' schedule's not that terrible starting out, but I think that the Jaguars, I just don't see them winning the division. I think there's too many people believe in the hype.
Yeah.
And when this feels very reminiscent of like the Baker Mayfield Browns after they went to the playoffs and like beat the Steelers really bad in a game, and then everybody's choosing them. They're the darlings. Felt like in 2018, after the 2017 Jaguars. There's just something about Jacksonville I can't, and it's not just because they're a rival. Like, even if I was I guess a Seahawks fan, and you're asking me to pick the AFC South, just because I know I keep up with all the teams in the NFL, and I still would as a Seahawks fan, I'm looking at it and I'm thinking, isn't there always a team that everybody overhypes every year? It's the Colts, it's the Browns, it's the Jaguars twice since 2017. It just never works out, and this is that team that it's never going to work out for. And look, they may still be 8-9 or 7-10 or something like that. I just got to see it. I got to see them put back-to-back winning seasons, which they haven't done in like 15 years or something. Believe it. It's kind of like Ryan Tannehill in the playoffs. So I got to see it to believe it.
Well, I agree with your point that I think the pressure being on Jacksonville, the first place schedule being for Jacksonville, both of which I think help the Titans. I think I agree with your basic point there. I think the big difference between the overhyped Browns is that Trevor Lawrence is 1,000 times better than Baker Mayfield. So that's just my personal opinion. I know you do not endorse or agree with that opinion.
I don't agree with either of those quarterbacks. So,
Well, you guys know me. I'm lifelong diehard Jags fan who loves Trevor Lawrence.
To be honest, that Baker Mayfield had just as good as a season as Trevor Lawrence, if I'm not mistaken. I'd have to go back and look at it to put that up there, but we can always check.
Pull it up right now while I tell everybody about Spitgate being the dumbest shit I've ever heard of in my entire life. Go to Sinkers Beverages, of course. Make sure you sign up for the in crowd, and they'll search Uber Eats for Sinkers Beverages. They'll deliver the booze directly to your house. Zach, I know I'm asking
you so you can drink.
Asking you to do two things at one time. Well done. Kingston Group, of course, buildkg.com is the website. Just contact them if you have any questions about your home. And of course, Bluegrass Beverages, September 30th, we're going to be giving away free tequila and free bourbon. We got a whiskey and tequila fest up there in the parking lot out there at the beautiful store, Bluegrass Beverages up in Hendersonville. There's a chance that the two of us are out there, so come on by, hang out. There's also, and it's on the website, there is a dinner on the night before at like some fancy country club, the Camus Wine Dinner on Friday, September 29th, at Bluegrass Country Club. You can buy tickets. They're available on the website. That is not for free. You get a 5-course meal, of course. It's paired with all different types of delicious cocktails and beverages. So make sure you check that out as well as the free one. So you guys talked for like 30 minutes about this on football and other F words. So I don't want to beat it into the ground, but I want to know, like, I guess I have always separated my college and NFL love And I know Peyton Manning like messed with our heads for a long time as a state, because if you're a Tennessee Volunteers fan, you're a diehard. Peyton Manning is like God. And then he goes and plays for the Colts for 25 or 18 years or whatever the hell the number was. And playing against the Titans every year just sort of caused this weird identity crisis for people in the state of Tennessee. And so maybe that's some at the part of this, but like my college team is my college team and I root for them to win championships. My NFL team is my NFL team and I root for them to win championships. The NFL team, I don't care who they draft players wise, where they come from or who they are. You take the best possible player to win a football game for you, which I think the Titans have done unequivocally. I don't think there is a way for a professional sports team to somehow massage their roster to appeal to a demographic or something. So I don't understand any of that. So I don't understand what spitting in the faces of Tennessee fans was. I was there on Saturday with my family, and like we had a great time. I thought the atmosphere was great. I don't think it was nearly as good as Neyland Stadium. I've seen Tennessee Titans games there in that stadium that were close. There's plenty of Titans games that were close-ish to that type of atmosphere. I was there for the Bengals playoff game. It was basically identical, if not more, and not louder. So I just don't understand the genesis of the point.
You can't get an answer. That's the thing that's so frustrating about it, is that you can't get an answer.
Well, and I will say this because I know Withrow very well, and I'm close enough friends with him that I'll say, look, I think he meant well with his original statement, which is I hope this is how the Titans can like basically produce this type of atmosphere. And I would just say, like, part of the reason I like college football more than NFL football as a fan is like the raw intensity of Southern college football just being batshit crazy, which is very different than even like some of the most historically big franchises in the NFL. Like, you can't have a team that's 25 years old and try to compete with a college football program that's been around since Meemaw's Meemaw was watching ball, on the transistor radio back in 1935. Like, I don't understand the point of all of it. And I think, like, I took Chad's tweet to mean, like, hey, one day this new stadium that we're going to have with the Titans could sound like this every single weekend.
Well, and I also said that it probably should have been phrased because, Chad knows what it was like, when the Titans were at the height of their power at Adelphia Coliseum and all that kind of stuff. I mean, even before it turned into Nissan Stadium, LP Field and all that kind of stuff. I mean, it was rocking. So Chad knows what that is. And it would have been, I think in his head, he's likely thinking, this is what I want it to be again.
Right.
Like, I think that he was missing a word. I didn't have a problem with Chad's tweet. I thought Chad's X was right on cue, and I got what he was saying. I understood what he was saying. It's just that Charlie's tweet is just
and I'm not even going to address it. I think here's the thing, that the one thing I have not heard it as part of this conversation is that it is not the fans' fault, Titans fans who have to pay extreme prices to go to a dump of a stadium. That I think it's the Titans organization fault. And if this was the example, which I have not seen anybody say, the fact that it is just not a good building anymore. Like, I went to Mercedes-Benz Stadium one day at SEC Media Days 2 years ago, and then I came right back to a preseason game at Nissan, and I was like, what the fuck just happened? Like, I went from like a UFO Star Trek set to like a high school football game in like one day, and I just saw it night and day, and I realized, oh, this is why it's hard to sell the building out. Like, it's hard. It's a young fan base. It's a transient town. Like, we know all these reasons why it's hard to sell the building out. I would assume 10 years from now, when there's a new building and like 35 years of fandom with kids now coming that have parents that used to come when they were kids, that it feels different. But I don't know what a team's supposed to do other than like have some alumni nights or maybe like post some stuff on social media. Like, I don't understand the whole point. I think a more interesting question is, what is Nashville as a market, a sports market? What are we? And Titans is number one, but by a large margin from interest and from TV ratings. The Titans dominate every other sport by a country mile in the market. So in the market of the DMA, 2 million people in Nashville, Tennessee, which includes like Murfreesboro and Franklin and Hendersonville and like sort of the greater Middle Tennessee area, Titans dominate. The only two events that have beaten the Titans games in like 6 years on television were Tennessee Volunteers games last year against Alabama and against Georgia. So Nashville is a Tennessee Volunteers market if it is a college football market first, but it is an NFL market above all else. We decided
This is
that in
why they
1990.
spend their money in an NFL market. They don't spend their money anywhere else.
This is in 1990. We decided this as a city in 1997 when we brought the Titans here and the Preds here. We are a professional sports town. As far as being a college market goes, we are a Tennessee Volunteers market. So I disagree with Sam Phelan's tweet, who, by the way, you can hear on Lamestream Sports this week coming up. I disagree with his basic point that, like, hey, there's a lot of other colleges closer. It's 160 miles away. Like, Vanderbilt's irrelevant. No disrespect, but Vanderbilt's irrelevant. This is a Tennessee Volunteers market, number one, if you are ranking the colleges. Alabama's number two, clearly. Vanderbilt's somewhere in the mix. But by and large, there's inner circle, and then there's outer rings of interest in this market. There's Ole Miss, Auburn, Kentucky, right? Like close by, like within 3 or 4 hours.
I mean, you don't see Kentucky fans tagging the Preds in tweets saying, well, you guys, when Kentucky plays at Bridgestone, you guys, if you pander to the Kentucky hockey team, you could have a little bit more of this.
Well, what's so ironic about that, of course, is that Kentucky is the only college team, basketball or football, to ever drink Broadway out of beer because they buy so many tickets to the SEC basketball tournament. But my point is there's concentric circles in the SEC of interest. And it's Tennessee number one with Alabama and Vanderbilt. Like that's the inner circle of interest in Nashville. The next circle outside of that is Ole Miss, Auburn, Kentucky. Like it's the teams that are geographically the next ring out. And then after and the next ring after that is like Georgia, South Carolina, LSU, Arkansas, like there's a further group of teams that's further away. And that just makes
Where's Memphis in that?
Logical sense. I think it's closer-ish to Vanderbilt because of the size of it's just not a Power 5 team 3 hours away. It would absolutely, in my mind, be in the inner circle, the first ring of teams, with Kentucky basketball and football and Ole Miss and Alabama, and I would put it in that
I was
group.
really setting you up for a joke to say, like, outer fucking space. What are you, an idiot?
I was trying to be nice because I actually just got done reading. There's a great new book about political scandals in the history of the state of Tennessee. And if you want,
let me tell you, there's quite a few.
If you want to read up on the dynamics at play between why there's such a huge rivalry between Memphis and Nashville, you got to go check out Eric Schelzig and Joel Ebert's new book. Go check that out. You'll learn a lot of shit about a guy who, one of the guys was shooting guns on I-40 while driving and shit. It was crazy. Anyway,
we gotta get to SEC talk real quick.
Yeah.
There's a lot of questions I want to ask you, but first. Baker Mayfield's in terms of efficiency stats, touchdown percentage, yards per attempt. Let's see, yards per attempt and all the efficiency stats. So EPA, CPOE, completion percentage over expected, air yards, success rate. Baker Mayfield wins in every category. His 2020 season, it's not box score wise, not better because there's an extra game and the yards per game for Trevor Lawrence, he wins handedly. But in terms of actual data of efficiency stats, he mops the floor with them in several.
You're talking that was his second season?
That was the third season. So that was the vaunted coming out party for the Browns, and everybody in 2021 was picking the Browns to go crazy and go to the Super Bowl because they just came off an 11-5 win and beat the Steelers in the playoffs.
Well, I don't have all the the Uber analytics in front of me.
But this is not to say that, but this is
how many yards and touchdowns did he have?
Yeah, to me, the yards and touchdowns don't matter. I'm doing efficiency stats because for a reason. But to me, I'm not saying that Trevor Lawrence is Baker Mayfield, but I'm also saying that I don't think Trevor Lawrence's year last year is as good as what everybody's hyping it up to be. So that's just one thing. But let's get to the SEC football.
That's fair because I think he's going to have an even better year this year. So.
Oh, he definitely won't. Okay, what we learned in SEC Week 1, and I want to ask you a question that is spawned from a Caroline Fenton, who is an LSU fan, but also covers the NCAA football for a long time and SEC and all that kind of stuff.
Yep.
Are you concerned about her hometown team, the LSU Tigers, or college town team, whatever you want to call it, the LSU Tigers? Are you concerned with what Brian Kelly displayed as coaching ineptitude?
I'm not concerned with LSU.
Oh, you love LSU, just
Big
like the
picture.
Jaguars.
Well, I have Florida State number 2 in my poll before this weekend. I picked Florida State on the money line to win outright, and I have Florida State playing in the national championship game. So I wasn't all that surprised. I think on this show I said Jordan Travis is going to attack LSU secondary down the field, and they're going to win the game outright. So
Yeah, but the coaching is what I have an issue with.
I think Brian Kelly has like 23 years, I believe, of like track record of figuring
Being a
things
bad
out.
coach, I agree.
Well, I don't know how you can win championships at every single level, be the winningest coach in Notre Dame history, win the SEC West last year, play in 2 playoffs and a BCS title game, and be considered
Championships.
terrible. He won championship at Grand Valley State. He won a championship at Cincinnati. He won a championship at Central Michigan.
Not a actual championship. The
In his own
participation division.
No, in his own, he won. I think he won the national title at Grand Valley, but like he won conference championships every step of his career. And then
but never the big one.
But that was they didn't. They're playing in the group of 5, dude. The MAC does not get to compete for the national title. But then he goes to Notre Dame, and he's the winningest coach in the history of Notre Dame, passing Nuke Rockne, going to a BCS championship game and 2 playoffs. That's 3 times in the championship era. He's accomplished more than almost every other coach in college football history.
And lost pretty embarrassing in every one of those.
Yeah, because he didn't have the players same as Alabama. So then he goes to LSU where he has the players. Guess what? He's 1-0 against Nick Saban as an SEC coach.
Not this year.
My point is that I saw what I expected to see.
You expected
Florida State to win.
What
specifics? What specifics are you talking about?
I mean, he just didn't handle the game well at all. Any of his the way that he went about is kind of like akin to a Denver Broncos coach, or maybe even Dennis Allen. Like he's just making mistakes and choices that are odd, and I don't know. Just to me, one thing that I did say that I expected, and we saw it on full display, is that if called upon, Jaden Daniels cannot carry this team. Now, they're not going to be playing Florida States every week, but there's a lot of Florida States on their schedule this year.
Yes.
So I just think this LSU hype's, it's not going to live up to it, man.
I agree. Here's what I would say. You are correct if you had LSU winning the West and playing in the SEC championship game. I did not. I have Alabama winning the West and playing against Georgia. I did not have LSU making the playoff. I do have Florida State making the playoff. I said all of that last week, and I got the receipts to prove it. And so I agree with your point that Jaden Daniels isn't going to carry them.
There ain't no competition in their conference.
They're going to run through everybody.
They're going to run through.
But they're also really, really good. And so I think, again, I expected maybe not a 35-10 second half or whatever where they were that good, but like I expected Florida State to win. Again, I had them on the money line straight up, and I have them making the playoff. I have them playing in the national title game.
I had them on the money line.
So I would say, to me, everything for LSU is still in front of it, and I still have the same exact questions, which is, to your point, can Jaden Daniels take them from a very good team and make them an elite team? And that is why I'm picking Alabama to win the West. Because I think Alabama is going to win the West.
Because, like, I think this is what I learned about Alabama this week is that I think Jalen Milroe is just Blake Sims.
I think he's first year Jalen Hurts. First year.
You think he's first year Jalen Hurts? He could be. I can see that sort of.
Because I think that's what they're going to do this year. It's 2017.
It's kind of just protect him.
It's going to be bully ball. I mean, he averaged 11 yards per attempt against Middle Tennessee. This is the week we find out about Bama. They're going to play Texas at home this weekend.
Which Texas did not look good against Rice. Which
they didn't look great either.
So happy in my belly. I got something saved for Mike later on down the road.
I'm curious if it works the other way, though, for Texas. Like, they both played very vanilla game plans. I'm curious if, like, Texas was sort of holding some stuff back, and mentally they're a little bit extra motivated because they were holding it back for this game. Here's the 2 things that matter in this game. If Quinn Ewers is under pressure at the very beginning of the game, Texas is fucked. If Alabama if Texas linebackers are making tackles 5-6 yards downfield on Roydell Williams and Jace McClellan and Jam Miller, and they're having to make tackles in the running game at 4, 5, 6 yards downfield in the first quarter, Texas is fucked. If they can do those, if Texas can stop the run and protect the quarterback, they can go in there and win. Those are the 2 things. I know it sounds basic, but like those are the 2 matchups. If you can do those things against Alabama, and force Miller to throw the football, then I think you can beat Alabama on the road because they've got some dudes. Texas has some dudes, but I'm roll Tide, baby. I'm with the Tide, so I got Bama.
Did you learn anything from the University of Tennessee?
Nope.
Before we go, because
Nope.
I just kind of wondered.
Nope.
Milton didn't look that good, but he also had 2 drop passes, but he also had passes that were overshot. So I feel like that is going, like, to me, I feel like that is just a Joe Milton roller coaster.
Yep.
But Nico looked really good.
Oh, dude, the crowd went bonkers.
So
when
let
he
me
came
ask
in.
you, how much of the inconsistency roller coaster does the University of Tennessee fans, who are not rational and very patient?
What are you talking about? We just did a whole segment about how rational they are on Twitter.
I mean, how long do you think there's going to be before there's chance of Nico?
Well, they literally were chanting Nico at Nissan Stadium.
But this is more of a to replace Joe Milton.
He averaged about 6.2 yards per attempt, which is way under what you need to do. But the defense was forcing him to throw it short. You're absolutely correct. He missed on some throws, but also the rainmaker that he threw was dropped, and then there was another one in the end zone that should have been caught. Maybe inbounds. So I think it was sort of like what you expected from Tennessee. Like, I expect you to run the ball for almost 300 yards against a terrible Virginia is a 6-point underdog at home to James Madison this week. I just want to point out how bad Virginia is.
Yeah.
So I don't think we learned much of anything. We are not going to learn anything about Tennessee this week against Austin Peay. If Joe Milton goes on the road and smokes Florida in the swamp, we can start to have a conversation about Joe Milton.
Something about the swamp, the mystique of the swamp in the University of Tennessee.
They haven't won since they have not won in the swamp since I was at college at University of Tennessee in 2003. I now have 2 children and a wife.
Yeah, there you go.
The wife came first, by the way.
Yeah. What's on tap this weekend? Brought to you by Sinkers Beverages. Get it on tap, and then it's I like it.
Can I add? Sorry, can I add one more? Yeah. What I did learn though, and it includes Florida and South. I'm very concerned about Florida and South Carolina. We said it last week. If you cannot score on North Carolina, you got problems. Spencer Rattler sacked 9 times by North Carolina. South Carolina's schedule includes road trips to Georgia, Tennessee, Missouri, Texas A&M, packaged around home games with, I believe, Clemson, Kentucky, as well as Florida and Mississippi State. It is absolutely brutal for South Carolina. They had 8 possessions. They stopped Drake May, number 1 overall pick, Drake May. They stopped him like 4 straight times. They had 8 possessions and they scored 3 points. That is very concerning if I'm a South Carolina fan. And then Florida, you can't put players with the same fucking number on the field for the same play, y'all. Like, give me a break about that. The sloppiness with which they played that game is my concern. Not that they got beat by Utah. Utah's a good football team. They're on the road. But you cannot look that undisciplined in year 2. That's my concern with Florida. So that gives Tennessee fans some hope to go down there and get a win. So, sorry, continue. On tap.
Well, week 2 games. So we got, I by my look of it, Vanderbilt versus Wake Forest. Pretty good game. Going to be a good, even matchup kind of game. Ole Miss versus Tulane. It's going to be very good.
Great
Texas A&M versus Miami could put some people on notice. You know, it's kind of one of those games. Texas Alabama, of course, is the other one. Rest of them are kind of bad. I don't think I'm really interested in anything else. But I want to get your, because we're running along. So, but I want
it's week 1, man.
It's week 1. If Alabama beats Texas again, will Texas say we're not coming to the SEC? This is too much for us.
Obviously not. But I do think it. I if it is like 24-3 in the third quarter, like the offense is totally stagnant with Quinn Ewers, which, by the way, he was very good against Alabama before he got hurt last year in the game. He hit on like 3 or 4 big plays to Xavier Worthy down the field. They were very good, and then he got hurt. If it's like 21, here's what's gonna happen: 21-3 third quarter. Arch Manning. Where's Arch Manning? Paging Arch Manning. Like, the calls for Arch Manning are going to be so loud. Let's just throw him out there against Bama and see what he does. It's 21-3. What are we going to lose? Like, Arch has those boosters like all twisted up the way Nico has Tennessee boosters all twisted up.
Yep.
So that's going to be interesting. I think the Ole Miss at Tulane and A&M at Miami games are kind of similar. Last week, the two quarterbacks were great. Connor Wigman for A&M was great with Bobby Petrino's offense. Jackson Dart was elite in Lane Kiffin's offense for Ole Miss, both against
It's such a
very
great name. I just cannot get
Jackson
over
Dart.
a quarterback being called Jackson Dart. I think
It's pretty
that's such
good.
a good name.
It's pretty good. Those
And
two
he has
guys,
the aesthetics too. Like, I
and
mean, he's got
yeah, yep.
the eye makeup and stuff like that.
They were both great. Those numbers that they put up last week would have been good against Air. I mean, yes, there were other football teams, but they were not good competition. Both are now on the road against quality competition. So let's find out. A&M's only like a 4-point favorite on the road against Miami. I think they go down there and make a statement. I would lay the points. I would not fuck with Tulane. Ole Miss is going to go down there, and it's going to be a tough game. Go party in New Orleans, by the way. The worst take you've ever had on F words is that New Orleans is a bad city. It is one of the best cities in the world, one of my favorite places in the world. My wife's
Constantly smells
don't
like vomit.
don't talk. Well, no, if that's only if you hang
It
out
is.
in the
Listen,
worst part of
the
town.
aisle, the area behind Tootsie's and all those honky tonks, that area that constantly smells like shit and vomit. That's the whole city of New Orleans.
So Nashville and New Orleans are very similar to me in that the Quarter and Broadway suck giant donkey balls. If you are going to Nashville, you don't go to Lower Broadway more than like for the one time that you go.
But then there's no point to go to Nashville. There's
I
no point to go to
disagree.
New Orleans.
No,
There's
New
no
Orleans
casino. So why do you go to Nashville if you're not going to go downtown?
I can't help it that you're an uncultured heathen. Everything about New Orleans is magical. It's just not in the Quarter. It's outside. It's the Art District. It's the Garden District. It's the Bacchanal. It's the
Nashville
Ninth
doesn't have
Ward.
any of this other stuff, though.
Maybe you're right, but I like North Nashville and Sylvan Park and Charlotte
But
and
nobody's
East
coming
and
to
WeHo.
nobody's coming to visit Nashville to go to all these places. They're coming for that. So if you're a tourist, you're coming for downtown. I will say this.
Not enough vampire history in Nashville.
The best part of downtown New Orleans and that area is the casino. Great casino.
They got a really good. I saw Jason Isbell and Aaron Lee Tasjan at that casino venue. There's a really good concert venue in there.
Very good.
Go Garden District. Go eat at Coquette. Go to Tippy Tina's for a show. It is like old Nashville. So much soul, so much life, so much vibrance. It's awesome. My wife. Don't talk about my wife. She is currently having surgery and loves New Orleans. So don't talk about her. Okay.
Okay.
She loves New Orleans.
Hope everything's fine on the surgery front.
Either way, Ole Miss at Tulane. I think Tulane wants to run the ball. Ole Miss wants to throw it. Let's check out that Pete Golding defense. And then I think that's about it. Otherwise, Vandy's a 10-point underdog against Wake Forest. So
is it safe to believe in Colorado? It's not an SEC question, but I just kind of want to get your thoughts on it.
I can't believe that got into our show. I am curious. I would say no. Okay. This week, I think
that's
yes.
Kind of where I lean. I kind of lean like I think it's going to be a mirage for a couple of weeks.
They'll win this week, and people are going to buy in, but they are not a top 25 team. Their win total this year was like 3.5. Like they're not going to go to a bowl game. But here's the deal. Remember Jim Harbaugh got overexposed, and then everybody started hating him. Dabo right now is very easily hateable and has a very punchable face because he's overexposed. I think Deion's going to get so much coverage and so much like just spotlight that eventually we're all just going to get sick of it. And by the end of the year, we're going to realize like this guy didn't do the HBCUs right. He didn't do his players right. He didn't do Jackson State right. He didn't do the Colorado players right. And he's just kind of not that nice of a guy. So I think Prime's gonna wear his welcome out fairly quickly. But
what's with GQ getting all these sports things? DeAndre Hopkins was apparently interviewed in GQ, but like they've had quite a few different GQ sports related articles. And I know it's Gentleman Quarterly Magazine, but just
I was going to say, I mean, how many times has Tom Brady been on the cover?
Probably a lot, but I mean, you don't see it you don't see it circulated on Twitter a lot. And I've seen it now a couple of different times. This one is that DeAndre Hopkins said the Lions, Cowboys, Giants, and 49ers didn't call him back at free agency. And he says, I think I made the best decision. I can't wait to play him and honestly try my best to crush their ass. Well, the only problem is that with the Tennessee Titans do not play any of
Don't
these
play any
teams
of those teams.
unless they go to the Super Bowl.
All I learned is that DeAndre Hopkins hasn't looked at the schedule yet.
Yeah.
That's all I learned there. Otherwise, thank you guys for your comments. Thank you to Sinkers Beverage and to the Kingston Group for supporting us. Obviously, Football and Other F Words, Stacking the Inbox as well. Check out all of his work. You can check out us, of course, all across the 440 Sports Network, as well as SEC Football Live every single Tuesday at noon Central Time. We will talk to you guys on Monday. Enjoy week 1 of the NFL, week 2 of college football. Y'all have a good one, everybody. We'll talk to you next week.